Thank you for your patience. So can you hear me? Okay, good. So the other day I went to the gym and I was starting to put on my gym clothes, and all of a sudden I noticed the back of my shirt had big holes in it. And I go, it's not supposed to be that way. This is supposed to last me forever, right? It's like one of the banes of my life that things wear out. And one of the banes of Audrey is that I keep wearing them. So the power this month is power. And our focus is the power of prayer. And also, we're kind of holding Myrtle Fillmore, one of the founding members of Unity, with that 28 Days of Prayer booklet, which gives us a way to kind of focus each day into a deeper truth of who we are and who we think we are. And one of the gifts of Myrtle was that she right away, when she started hearing things that resonated to her in her heart, she knew that she needed to make it practical. She knew she needed to work with it, to take every part of her being and compare it to that truth that resonated in her. And over years, her consciousness and her being has kept changing as she kept reminding every part of herself that truth, that she was a child of God. Now, I have a couple symbols here. The first one is the light, the focus at unity, which is also its incredible power, which is that there's only one. And the tricky thing about there's only one is that sometimes we go, yes, there's only one, and then there's me. No, that's the trick. No, it's not only one in me. We are that only one. And that's our journey, because it's a scary one to open to that part of ourself, that truth, that no, there's not a separation there. And the other piece is a piece of steel that you see behind it that's bent. And for the moment, that's going to be a symbol of fear. The fear that comes out of believing that we are separate from love, from each other, from our basic needs. And the fact that those things always seem unbendable. They seem permanent. And that's why they're so scary. Now, we all want to be happy. Most beings on this planet, I would suspect, want to be happy. That sort of dictates a lot of our choices and a lot of our movements. But where do we find it? Where do we find that place of being happy? And that's what teachers come here to help us with, because we keep trying to find that happiness within the world that we see. A world that's based on being bodies, a world that's based on all the aspects of that, which that piece of steel is representing. But the spiritual journey, part of its challenge is that it's a movement from the seen to the unseen. And this is what makes it so difficult, because it makes it very difficult. Well, how can this possibly be? How can these ideas be truth? Well, we have a gift. 2,000 years ago, they didn't have the science that we have now. And the science we have now has opened us up to a little bit of understanding that there's more to reality than we're able to experience with our senses. We realize now that there's spectrums of sound, spectrums of light. And so that's just a hint that what we perceive is not the total reality. Just like this podium is not as solid as it appears. Just like you and I are not as separate as it appears. Last week, Evie was talking about the angel, because she was talking about the mother principle along with prayer. And she was talking about the angel coming to Mary. and saying something like, he's going to bring the presence of the divine into this world. And actually, all teachers that come from that unseen world, they come to bring the awareness that the divine is who we are, that the divine is here, but it's to birth that consciousness of that truth. Now, mystics come from everywhere. They're here to serve all beings. And so I'm going to read one. This particular mystic lived in the late 1600s. His name was Bulleh Shah, and he lived what is now northern India and the border to Pakistan, kind of right, a place where all that fear is going on at the moment. And so Bulleh says, banish duality from your heart. Well, how can I banish duality from my heart? He says, be free from disputes. How do I become free from disputes when I want to be right? And at his time period, he said the Turk and the Hindus are not different. But we have a lot of things we could use in that place, right? He said, look on all as holy, not as thieves. He look on all as holy. For the Lord is in every single one. So they come and they tell us this truth. But how do I go from here, this belief that I'm a body and that I'm separate and vulnerable, to the reality that he's talking about? You know, they put that out for us so that some part of us kind of keeps working towards, how do I get towards that experience? The power of prayer, which we're looking at today, I think of as one of the bridges from this reality of separation and fear to that reality that Bulleh Shah was talking about. That the truth of each of us, this room, there's only one of us. We're that oneness, and we are one in each other. And as that opens up in us, we'll still see the appearance, but the truth that we'll see is that fact that there's no difference between you and me. That there's no way in that space to love myself more than I love you. That's not the reality while I'm believing I'm a body, though. And this is what the prayer is, one of the ways. Meditation is another way to help us start to bridge from the unseen to the known. It's about changing the mind. You know, we have two minds. One mind is symbolic of these two eyes. We see things in opposites. We see things as separate. Meditation, that be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that you are God. That starts to open up as we open ourselves to these tools that are available to us. And changing my mind, I can't do it from the place of the two eyes. I can't do it from this mind of separation. But fortunately, we're not alone. There's something more to us. And that mind of us that knows the wholeness, that knows the wholeness of spirit of each of us, that knows that truth and is there always for the asking within all of us. And it shows us what the heart part of us can know, those truths that the intellect has not yet experienced. At Christmas time, we had a beautiful tree, and we were looking at it. We used that as a symbol also at that time, that the light of that tree is the light of who we are. But when you looked at the tree, there was all these little dark spaces in it. It wasn't solid light. There was those little spaces of darkness through the tree. And we were using that as a symbol that The truth of us is that light, is that wholeness, is that one. But we have places inside of us that doesn't know that truth, that places of fear that block the light of who we are. And it's not that we have to go seek the light. That's already there. Our truth is already here. But I'll read to you from a mystic called Rumi. Now, this was in the 1200s. So you can see they're always coming and just helping us wherever we happen to be. And Rumi said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against the truth of who you are, against that love. And so our country music and most of our other music, it's about trying to find this thing outside of ourselves. And yet it's already within. That's why it doesn't make sense to the mind, but that's why mystics and Jesus say you got to go within, because that's where your truth is. And so what happens when I go in? The opportunity is to experience those places of darkness. Now, my shame and my guilt, my wanting to be perfect, makes it real difficult to look at those dark places. I want to blame you so that I don't have to deal with it. And as you know, no matter what we talk about here, when we're experiencing the dark part myself, I mean, it's like, how do I get through this? How do I even get out of this? How come I'm not choosing love? How come I'm feeling attacked? All those kind of feelings that come up in us. And yet those are illusions of separation. And because we're not separate, because the truth is love, the solution to that darkness is always within us, is to bring the love of who we are to that darkness. But we have to take possession of the darkness before we can give it away. My shame is going to keep me from doing that. Last week, when Evie talked about the mother principle, and the symbol of Mary, it's like we all have that, male and female. I mean, we're just playing those roles. We go back and forth between them, and here we are. We think we're separate, and yet we are both. And so the male also, in my journey, I found that because I didn't have a mother who was able to do it in this lifetime, I had to become that mother and go to those places of hurt, a misunderstanding that were within me as a small child. I misinterpreted. And so I had to go and take the mother that I am, the compassion, the love that is me, and take it to the Michael that was a 4-year-old or a 2 or a 6 or a 10, all those little places. I had to go and nurture and love and to forgive that scene, realizing that it was about love. It was about helping me to expand into the light that we are. Through the Course in Miracles, there's a thing called the Song of Prayer. And I find this very powerful when I'm sitting with some of you and we're sharing some of those places of fear, those places of rebar within ourselves. And here's what it says. You only have one need. You have but one. What God created, one must recognize the oneness and rejoice that what illusions, all those fears, all those places of darkness in my consciousness that seem to separate is one forever in the mind of God. And so when I'm in prayer with any of you, we're basically sharing ourselves. There's no difference in truth. And it's taking these things that are scary. What's scary in you is scary in me. And it's sitting together with the strength of who we are. and reminding ourselves together that in the mind of God, all is one, that there is only God. Now we need to take our attention off the problem and hold it into the truth. That's where the power is. Prayer must now be the means by which God's child leaves separate goals and separate interests and turns in holy gladness to the truth of union. Those separate goals, those idols that I think are going to make me happy. And what is the process is letting go of the source of my happiness from the outside world, because unfortunately, all of the outside world is a little bit like my shirt. And so the mystics, it's not about judging this world. It's about realizing the limits of this world, not judging it. As we start to let go of those places of darkness, we start to find that there's more and more of that light of that tree that is us. Now there becomes more and more love available to love the world, to forgive the world, to love each other, to love myself. And it doesn't mean I can't enjoy. It's just knowing that that's not really going to be the source of where my happiness is going to come from. I went one time and did all these wonderful things where I grew up, and it was totally empty. And I go, what is going on? Well, eventually it was like, Michael, connect with me first. And I did, and all of a sudden everything opened up. The rebar. The story of that rebar I've shared with many of you. Val Ann's husband, Gene, and I were involved with a workshop, and all the people were given a straight piece of that bar. And they were told, okay, put this on your throat and bend it. And so I was observing the people around me, and they tried to use the power as they knew it, the power of the body. And what ended up happening is they all started hurting themselves. They all started choking because you can't push very hard on your throat. And the person that I was with, that's kind of how they wanted to do it. So a couple of days later, I was talking with Gene, and also I'd opened up in myself. I go, okay, so I know there's a trick here. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. But I know that, well, I just said, how do I do this? I know that I can't do it through my body and through my will, through my forcing, all those things that we're taught, and that are adulated in this culture. Run 4,000 miles and then do it again, or whatever it happens to be. And so I asked, I said, how do I do this? And what came was love. And now, okay, what does that mean? So all of a sudden I realized that the only thing I was to do was just to hold love. And Gene and I talked about this. And so we put the rebar on our throats. And then what we did is we held our concentration on each other, on that oneness and the love that is our truth. And we held it. And Gene was able to and willing to just totally take his mind off the rebar and love me. We looked in each other's eyes. Of course, we're about 6 feet apart because that's how long the bar was. And we just kept our concentration on nothing else. Just kept until that love kept growing and growing and building within us. And all of a sudden, and we didn't take our attention off of each other ever. All of a sudden, we could feel bar starting to do this. All of a sudden, it started to look like a wave on the ocean. And we're looking at each other at kind of the side of your eye. You can kind of see this weird thing going on. And all of a sudden, the bar just folded on itself, as you can see, fell to the ground. We walked towards each other, and just held each other and loved each other and the truth that we are. It's that same power when we hold the truth, when we ask for help, that we can solve every appearance of fear that's before us. I grew up on the ocean as a child, and I started diving when I was quite young. And there were times when the sky was really black and the ocean would reflect it like a mirror. And so the sea was incredibly dark. Sometimes it was really rough. And I'd feel incredible terror being on a cliff overlooking that. But when I could get myself into the water some way, have no idea how, put my mask on, was willing to put my head into the darkness, I was always amazed, even though I did it over and over again, I was always amazed that once I put my head through the surface of that darkness, there was amazing peace. There was a feeling of safety that I couldn't experience on the turmoil of the surface. Prayer is a way for us to step through the darknesses as they arise. And as you know, they oftentimes rise many times in the course of a day. But that love, which is our truth, the oneness that is our truth, is always there. It just needs our permission, because love never forces. It needs our permission to come into our life and to guide us and to show us our truth of oneness. Thank you. So let's just take a moment and let's take a moment to be in prayer, to be in meditation. And so where you are, I just want you to kind of breathe for a moment. Breathe and exhale. Just relax into the moment. Relax into your beingness. Gently let go. We're here to not look for love, but to release the blockages to our truth. So relax. As Bula was saying, that God is within every single one of us, that there is only the oneness of God. And whatever fears, whatever uncomfortableness might be in our life at this moment, as we breathe and relax, we just open to the truth that in the mind of God, there is only oneness. There is only love. I have no idea how to experience that. But as I breathe, I can open to that truth. As I relax, I can open to the sacredness of who I am. The sacredness of the person before me. That I can ask for help. I can make a change in my mind. I can gently release that mind of separation, that belief that we are alone, that belief in lack. And I can open to the wholeness of who I am, the wholeness of who we are. The Holy Spirit that knows the truth of who we are, that we are one Spirit, that we are one God. And so we just place that person, situation, whatever it is, and we ask, how do I see this through truth, through the truth of me? How do I see this through that one light, through love? I don't know how, but I need to keep my attention gently there, knowing that in love, I will gently release that illusion of darkness that is before me. And slowly, we become more and more in the awareness of who we are, that you and I are one. We are one with every being in this planet, no matter the roles they are playing. It's only a deception. Behind the deception, as Bullhe Shah said, there's only God. And so we relax and we give thanks that we are not alone, that we are one in the oneness of who we are, the oneness of God. And we give thanks. Amen. So now's the time for our prayer of protection. Just stay where you are. Just stay in yourself. And when you say that prayer of protection, do it in whatever way works for you. But you don't have to use the power and the force of your body. You can also use an opening to that truth of those words for who you are. You can say them in love for yourself. And so together, let's say the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light. The love of God enables us. We are the love of God protects us. We are the power. The presence of God watches over us. We are the power. Wherever we are is, all is well. We are one.